The film's story is set in Spain in 1944, when the Civil War had ended, but there was a lot of political and military instability in some hilly areas. This means that the local people had started a war against the fascist rule. And this is important, because this is not just a fairy tale. This is a story born in the shadow of fascism. In the opening scene of the movie, we see a child slowly dying, and in the background, someone is singing a lullaby to her. The film immediately tells us that this story will not protect innocence. It will test it. After this, we are told a story where a princess lived in a dystopian realm called the Underworld realm. This princess always wished to come to the human world, and one day, she escaped everyone and came to the human world. But she couldn't bear the bright light there, and she lost all memory of her world. She couldn't tolerate the harsh environment, and she died soon. On the other hand, her father, the king of the underworld realm, believed that someone would eventually bring his daughter back, maybe in a different form, in a different body, but she would definitely return. This prophecy becomes the emotional backbone of the film. Now, time changes, and we see that the child was reading this story from a storybook. This girl was none other than the child we saw at the beginning of the movie. Her name was Ofelia, and she was traveling with her pregnant mother, Carmen. And immediately we see a contrast. Fantasy in her hands, and brutal reality outside the car window. On the way, her mother's health deteriorates, and she stops the car. Ofelia gets out of the car and roams around in the nearby forest. And on the way, she finds a broken part of a statue. A little further, she finds the statue and attaches the broken part, and a grasshopper-like insect comes out of the statue's mouth. Ofelia thinks it's a fairy. Notice how quickly the film blurs the line between imagination and reality. From here, she goes with her mother to the mill, where her stepfather, Captain Vidal, was staying. Now, from the conversation between these two mother and daughter, we come to know that Ofelia's biological father was a tailor, after whose death Carmen married Captain Vidal, since he had helped her a lot. But Ofelia was not at all happy with this, and she did not consider the captain her father. And that emotional rejection becomes crucial later. Soon they reach the mill, where from the first introduction, we get to know that Captain Vidal is not a likable character. In fact, he represents authoritarian obsession. First, he grumbles about their delay in arriving, but hiding his displeasure, he welcomes both of them. First, when Carmen arrives, he first worries about his child and emotionally forces Carmen to sit in a wheelchair. Ofelia also extends her left hand to shake hands, and the captain gets angry. From here, one thing becomes clear to us viewers, that the captain is a very manipulative and dominating person. His obsession is not with love. It is with control, legacy, and the idea of a son. Now, in this scene, we also meet two important characters of the film. First is Mercedes, the captain's housekeeper, and second is Dr. Ferrero, the captain's personal doctor. And both of them, quietly, represent moral resistance within a corrupt system. When everyone is busy with baggage and Carmen, Ofelia again sees the insect from the forest, following which she reaches a labyrinth. Mercedes tells her that this labyrinth is very old, and she should not come here alone because she might get lost. That warning works both literally and symbolically. While talking, we see Mercedes and Ofelia slowly getting closer, a silent bond forming. Coming back to the story. At night, when the captain was discussing strategies against the guerrillas with his soldiers, Mercedes also overheard their conversation. And in the same way, Dr. Ferrero gives Carmen sleeping medicine. Now, when the doctor is leaving, Mercedes requests him to come and check a wound because someone was in a bad condition. At this point, we don't understand whose wound is being talked about here, but it is clarified later in the story. Anyway, the the doctor hands Mercedes a wrapped packet and leaves from there. Ofelia overhears their conversation, but she doesn't tell anyone. Even here, she chooses silence over betrayal. At night, Carmen asks Ofelia to tell a story to her unborn sibling. In Ophelia's tale, there was a blue rose on a mountain, and whoever picked it would become immortal. But that rose had poisonous thorns, and that's why no one dared to pick it. In this way, that rose withered one day. No one could reach it. This story quietly foreshadows the ending. Immortality exists, but it requires pain. Here, we see Captain Vidal sitting in his room, repairing a pocket watch, a symbol of time, of legacy, of inherited obsession. In the conversation between the doctor and Captain Vidal, we come to know that Carmen should not have traveled in that condition, but due to the captain's insistence and stubbornness, she came to the mill, and her health worsened even more because of this travel. Not only that, but Vidal repeatedly refers to her unborn child as a son, while we don't know if it will be a son or a daughter. When Dr. Ferrero confirms this to Vidal, he says that he is fully confident that his child will be a son. His certainty reflects arrogance, not faith. During patrolling, a sergeant finds two people, and he suspects that those people were also part of the rebel group. In this scene, we see Vidal's aggressive, sadistic, and impulsive nature as he kills these two people in a heinous and cruel way without any proof. Only later does he realize that they were innocent farmers who were hunting rabbits. Even after knowing this, he shows no remorse. This is fascism in its purest form, violence without accountability. On the other hand, Ofelia again meets the forest insect at night. Ofelia shows it a picture of a fairy from her book, and the insect magically changes its shape into a small fairy. It guides her to a well in the middle of the labyrinth. She comes down the stairs of this well to an altar, and here she meets a faun. Now, for those who don't know, in Greek and Roman mythology, a faun basically looks like a half-human, half-goat. Here he is called Faun. Faun addresses her as Your Highness, and here a big revelation happens that Ofelia was actually Princess Moana, the daughter of the underworld king. Yes, friends, the princess who was talked about at the beginning of the movie was none other than Ofelia herself. At first, Ofelia doesn't believe this, but Faun tells her that she was actually born from the moon, and there would be a moon mark on her left shoulder to prove it. Princess Moana's father, who is the king of the underworld, has given Faun the responsibility of creating portals all over the world so that Moana can use any portal to return to the underworld whenever she is born again. This is the last portal inside this labyrinth. Before leaving, he guides her and gives her a pouch and disappears. He tells her that the writing in the book will only be visible when Ofelia reads it alone. The fantasy world responds only to her, or perhaps only exists for her. So, the next morning, while taking a bath, she secretly reads the book, and magically, a map appears on the empty pages. In the mirror, she also sees that she actually had a moon mark on her shoulder, proving that Ofelia was Princess Moana. Whether destiny or imagination, the film refuses to clarify. Now, the story moves forward, where at night, Mercedes was making dinner arrangements, where she was quite busy. At this moment, Vidal comes and calls Mercedes. Actually, Vidal had played a very dirty trick to fight against the guerrillas. He had all the food hoarded in his storehouse with the intention that all other civilians would become dependent on him for basic needs like food. He also took the keys to the storehouse from Mercedes, and immediately after that, he sees smoke in the mountains, which means the villagers were nearby. Control through hunger, another layer of tyranny. Vidal goes to the mountains, and there he finds antibiotics left by the guerrillas.
Ofelia goes to the mountains following that map to complete her first task. As part of her first task, she had to feed 3 stones given by the fawn to a toad in the roots of a tree and take a golden key from its stomach. Ofelia crawls through mud and an insect swamp to reach that toad and easily completes this task. The rotten tree and bloated toad visually mirror a country being eaten from the inside. At night, during dinner,
the captain shares his ration plan with other officers. And here we see Dr. Ferrero and Mercedes a little worried. Mercedes takes a lamp and goes out into the forest on the pretext of collecting wood. But upon reaching the forest, she sends signals to someone, and then Ofelia stands in front of her. Both return to the mill together. Now at night, Ofelia again goes to meet the fawn at the Labyrinth portal. Here, Ofelia sees a mural in which a fawn, a girl whom the fawn calls Ofelia, and a child were present. When Ofelia asks who that child was, the fawn ignores her and asks for the golden key, and gives her chalk for her second task. So, the next morning, again in the bathroom, when she was reading the book, red color appeared all over the book, and soon Ofelia realizes that it was blood. As soon as she comes out, Carmen was bleeding heavily, and, as predicted by the book, there was blood all over the room. Reality and fantasy collide in the most terrifying way. At Dr. Ferrero's insistence, Ofelia is sent to another room for a few days so that Carmen can get sufficient rest. At night, Ofelia gets scared and Mercedes supports her. Ofelia says that she knows that Mercedes was helping the rebels, but she did not tell anyone because she cares for Mercedes, which Mercedes also understands. Compassion over authority, again. Mercedes secretly takes out some items from a secret place in the kitchen at night, and then someone comes from behind. It is none other than Dr. Ferrero. Here, we realize that the doctor was also with Mercedes, and these two were fighting against Vidal's fascist rule here. In the hideout, we see that Mercedes had brought some food and resources for everyone, and the doctor checks a man's wound. At this point, we understand that this is the man they were talking about earlier. I told you, didn't I, that someone's wound needs to be checked, etc. The doctor sees his bad condition and euthanizes him, meaning he gives him a medicine that gives a painless death. Even mercy becomes rebellion in a cruel world. At this moment, Vidal finds that antibiotic in the doctor's bag that the rebel group had left in the forest earlier. He realizes that the doctor is also involved in all this, and he shoots him. Vidal comes to know about the mandrake root. He raises his hand on Ofelia, and Carmen handles both of them. In anger, the mandrake root is thrown into the fire, and as soon as it starts burning, Carmen's contractions increase. After a long time, the baby is finally delivered, but Carmen dies. And just like that, Ofelia loses her last protection in the real world.
After that, we are shown a scene a few days later, when the situation had stabilized a little, and Vidal confronts Mercedes and tells her that he knows that she is the secret informer of this mill. So Mercedes decides to escape that night, and before leaving, she goes to meet Ofelia. Ofelia insists on taking her along. Mercedes also agrees. They do escape, but Vidal was prepared, and he catches them on the way. Here, he physically abuses Ofelia and locks her in the room. He brings Mercedes to the same storehouse to torture her. Now, Mercedes already had a hidden kitchen knife, using which she wounds the captain and escapes. And obviously, she can't run too far, and when the guards are about to catch her, Pedro's men come to save them. Resistance finally strikes back. Meanwhile, Ofelia is locked in her room, and the fawn comes to meet her. Surprisingly, seeing the fawn, Ofelia goes and hugs him. This shows that she had become quite close to the fawn, and he gives her one last chance, only on one condition, that she has to bring her brother to the labyrinth. He gives her another piece of chalk so that she can get out of the room, and Ofelia reaches her stepfather's room. She mixes her mother's sleeping medicine in his drinks, which he drinks. Then she runs away with the baby towards the labyrinth. In a state of intoxication, Vidal also chases them. At this moment, gunshots had started in the background, and Pedro and his men were fighting against Vidal's troops. As soon as Ofelia reaches the labyrinth, the fawn tells her that to open the portal for Ofelia, the blood of the innocent is needed, which means she has to sacrifice her brother. Ofelia refuses, which shocks the fawn. He angrily says that if she doesn't do this, she will lose her last hope.
And he says, "What kind of child is this that she doesn't even know properly? I mean, it's a newborn baby, so what's her problem with sacrificing it?" But even then, Ofelia refuses. For the first time, she disobeys not just Vidal, but even the fantasy authority. And at that moment, Vidal comes, takes the baby, and shoots Ofelia. Mercedes and Pedro were waiting for Vidal. Vidal understands that his escape was not possible now, and his troops had been outnumbered by Pedro's men, and he surrenders. Mercedes sees her son and tells him to tell the child his dying words. In response, Mercedes says that she will not even tell that child his father's name. And with that, Vidal's obsession with legacy dies with him. Ofelia falls near the altar, and the altar's portal opens with her blood. In this way, Ofelia finally meets her parents. Yes, her same father who was the king of the underworld realm. Now here comes a small twist in the story. Actually, Ophelia's father, who was the king of the underworld, says that Ophelia's final task was to save her brother, even if she had to sacrifice herself for it. And by completing this task, Ofelia has become immortal. Yes, that means Ofelia had passed her final test. After this, Princess Moana ruled her realm very well for many years. And the last line of the movie says that she also left her impressions on Earth, which are visible only to those who know where to look. And that is the true tragedy and beauty of the story. In a world ruled by cruelty, a child chose compassion, and that choice made her eternal.